Started with video number 3. I'm going to start back on the Northern Colony slide because I think that kind of rushed through it in the last one, but it's super important. So I want you to kind of make a couple notations out beside it. Talking about Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, and New Hampshire. When you talk about the North, you should probably have some notes out beside this. When you think North, what do you think? I think factories. I think maybe trade. I think what kind of climate? Probably colder, right? And a lot of harbors, so maybe fishing. Now, it's important that you know that up here at the top, we have Plymouth up here. Of course, you know Plymouth Rock, where the Pilgrims, or I'm going to call them the Puritans, land in 1620s. The Mayflower Compact, which is, of course, the very first form of self-government in the New World. But one thing that we have to remember is Plymouth actually doesn't become a colony. There's no state called Plymouth. There's no colony called Plymouth. It literally is absorbed by Massachusetts. Now, Massachusetts might get the biggest star of all. In fact, I do want you to star this one. The Massachusetts Bay Colony, or a lot of people, I want you to write this out beside it, and this is what I check for. New England is going to be what we call it sometimes. It's a theocracy. They put church and state together. Very, very religious. Winthrop is going to be their very first, and we'll get to him in a second, very first governor, but he's also probably their religious leader. This is where the Salem witch trials go down in 1962, and of course I described Anne Hutchinson, a woman who spoke out against the church and was scalped for her speaking out. She was banished to Rhode Island. Now, Rhode Island itself was actually quite free-thinking. I like to call it free-thinking Rhode Island, founded by Williams. They paid Indians for the land, and they separated church and state. Kind of interesting that they would do this, because this is a little bit more modern thinking. Back then, it was, if you want Indians' land, just kill them and take it and call it a day. But Roger Williams actually did not do that, along with one other guy we're about to talk about. Connecticut comes to order. Thomas Hooker. A lot of people overlook the fact that Connecticut had the very first constitution in the country. The Mayflower Compact was a set of laws, but really Connecticut puts the fundamental orders together, and they actually even give women some rights. New Hampshire, not that important. You just need to know about the fishing. Now, remember, when we get to a new slide, what do? Pause. Pause. Now, the Mayflower Compact, I cannot underestimate, I cannot tell you how much this is important to American democracy. 41 male passengers land in Plymouth, the Puritans. They sign a civil body of politics. I might definitely circle for the good of the colony. But here is the biggest thing. You need to circle self-government. It is the practice of self-government that lets me determine for myself what I want. And that self-government, or social contract theory, is another way we need to refer to it as. People making a contract together. It gives us our very first taste of something that now brightens the world brighter than any other light that there is. And that is democracy. If you want to know why the Mayflower Pact is important, and I'd write this out beside it, starts democracy in America. Pause it. Get it down. John Winthrop. First governor of Massachusetts Bay Colony. You might want to circle that. We also call Massachusetts Bay Colony the New England colonies, okay? He's the chief figure among the Puritan founders. Remember, up in Massachusetts Bay, there's something called the theocracy going on, church and state connected. So he is the first governor, but he's also the leader of the church. And he goes down in history for one quote in particular, and I cannot overemphasize how much this quote has guided Americans for centuries. And that quote is very simple. You can even put it big old capital letters by the slide. You must be a city upon a, do you know it? Hill. An elevated, higher place, people will look up to you, is what he says to the Puritans. And he's right. And they're not going to be perfect. They're going to make a lot of mistakes. But John Winthrop actually starts this idea that these people are going to be who the rest of the world looks to for leadership. Now think about that in 2015. Don't get me wrong, America has our problems. But we are some of the most symbolic leaders of human rights in America, in the entire world, of making sure that women have a voice, of making all this stuff like that. We're so blessed to be here. So Winthrop says, you must be a city upon a hill. And that picture right there is of me when I went to Boston. I was just walking along, and there was his grave. So kind of an interesting story I'll tell you in class. Now, pause this, get it down. Indian tensions happen mostly in the north. 2 wars you got to know. Pause it. Okay, Pequot War. Fought because tensions grew between Puritans and Indians. Not shocking. I'm going to be honest with you. The Pequots are defeated. Of course, you know it. The Treaty of Hartford might be the only thing you circle in the very top. Declared the Pequot Nation dissolved. That might be something important. But I'll be honest with you. This slide is a little misleading, so you might want to listen to me. This is where you got to listen, okay? The most important war with the Indians does not come in 1637 with Pequot. It actually comes King Philip's Wars in 1675. Metacom that's where, right here, circle it. This is where the Puritans fight Metacom. And let me tell you, Metacom goes down not very easily, but this war will definitely show some of the most savage battles that there are, and here's a picture right here. So King Philip's War, that might be something you do a little extra research on if you have an interest, but you do need to know Indian tensions are going to be coming up. Pause, get it down. Here's what they have to do because of the Indian tensions. Okay, now Indians versus colonists. Because there is going to be this rising tension, you're going to need the just the need of unification between the colonies. So the Puritan colonies in the north, you want to make sure you understand this is in the north, so maybe out beside here, right north. The New England Confederation is formed in 1643 to stand against the Iroquois Confederacy, who is, well, I think that gives it away, the Iroquois unification of several different tribes. Probably the most important and powerful native political alliance in history. I'll be honest with you, this is a really good slide because it shows you what's coming. Now that the colonies are starting to work together against the Indians, they have a common enemy, right? That always brings people together. The enemy of my enemy is my friend is what you're going to hear me say a lot, okay? But with this, as the New England colonies and as the colonies get to know each other better, they form relationships, they bond together, and it gives a basis and a foundation for the collaboration that will be needed to fight, well, what war is coming next? The French and Indian War. What war after that we really have to win? The British, the American Revolution. Now this one right here, let's go ahead and get this one down. Middle colonies. New York, Delaware, and Pennsylvania. Oops. Oh, no. Here we go. Pennsylvania right here. Why don't I let y'all get that down? Okay. Now, looking at this one, the middle colonies, obviously there's less of them. And I'll be very honest with you. You can basically put an X over Delaware, whatever. Delaware's not that important. The two important ones here are New York and Pennsylvania. Now, let's talk about economically. Which one do you think is more important? New York or Pennsylvania? Definitely New York, because you know that's where all the trade comes out of. Well, that's where Wall Street is now today. It was settled by the Dutch. You want to make sure you circle the Dutch right here. Called Old Netherlands or New Amsterdam, very aristocratic, and it was, of course, settled and founded by Henry Hudson. You know that, of course, because what river runs through New York? The Hudson River. But with that, this is going to lead to a lot of trading. Very important to know that. The middle colonies kind of, they don't have the agriculture climate, but they also don't have, you know, the northern industrialization. So they kind of play off of both of them, and they trade, if you will. Now, with that, the last one that I want to talk about, and y'all probably know this one very well from your summer assignment, is Pennsylvania, founded by the one and only, this one's easy, who? William Penn. Now, William Penn was what religion? Do you remember? He was a Quaker, and a Quaker quakes in the presence of God and in the presence of any sort of, you know, aggressiveness. So they're pacifists. They also paid Indians for lands, just like Roger Williams did. But the one thing that I love talking about with Pennsylvania is that Quakers are going to oppose any violence, and they're pacifists. They actually end up opposing the Second Amendment. Do y'all know what the Second Amendment is? Right to bear arms. But the interesting thing is they might have opposed the second, but William Penn might be largely responsible for the first. Do you remember what the First Amendment is? First Amendment, freedom of speech, press, and religion. William Penn gave freedom of religion to all of the people in his colonies, in his colony, not just the Quakers. So a pretty important guy. So out beside pacifist Pennsylvania, I would definitely put freedom of religion. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and stop this one right here just so we can kind of get back on track and kind of section it out. So tune in for 2 more videos, I think.